Imagine walking into the most exclusive private club in Manhattan, ready to sign a deal that would make you one of the most powerful women in America. You've worked 18 years to get to this moment. Your company is worth billions, your technology saves lives every single day. And then the billionaire family you're about to partner with looks you dead in the eye and asks if you're sure you're qualified to be in the room. What happened next shocked Wall Street, went viral within hours, and changed how corporate America thinks about respect, power, and walking away from money when your dignity is on the line. This is the true story of Dr. Amara Johnson, a 42-year-old black woman who built a medical technology empire from nothing, and the moment she taught the Whitfield family that some things are worth more than $600 million. The elevator climbed silently to the 47th floor of One Manhattan Plaza, carrying Dr. Amara Johnson toward what should have been the biggest moment of her career. Outside, snow was starting to fall over the city, but inside that elevator, Amara felt nothing but focused heat. She adjusted the collar of her charcoal gray power suit, not flashy, just sharp. Everything about her appearance was intentional. Her natural hair was styled in an elegant updo, her makeup was precise but not overdone, and her only jewelry was a simple gold watch that had belonged to her grandmother, the woman who raised her in Detroit after her parents died in a car accident when she was 8. Amara had built medtech solutions from a one-room apartment in Baltimore 15 years ago. Today, her company's AI-powered diagnostic systems were used in over 3,000 hospitals worldwide. Her technology could detect early-stage cancer, predict cardiac events, and identify rare diseases that human doctors missed. She had literally saved thousands of lives and generated billions in revenue. And now, the Whitfield Group wanted to acquire her company for $600 million. The elevator doors opened into the private club that the Whitfield family had been members of for over a century. The kind of place where oil barons made handshake deals that shaped nations, where Supreme Court justices played golf on weekends, where old money went to remind itself why it deserved to stay in power. Amara stepped into a lobby that screamed wealth and whispers, Persian rugs worth more than most people's houses, oil paintings of dead white men in military uniforms, and silence so thick you could cut it with the sterling silver letter openers displayed in glass cases. Dr. Johnson, a young man in a navy blazer, approached her. "I'm Preston, Mr. Whitfield's assistant. The family is waiting for you in the Westminster room." As they walked through hallways lined with hunting trophies and portraits of American presidents, Amara noticed something that made her stomach tighten just slightly. Every face on every wall was white. Every person they passed in the hallways was white. Every staff member, every portrait. It was like walking through a museum of exclusion. But Amara had been in rooms like this before. She had pitched to venture capitalists who looked past her, presented to hospital boards who questioned every word she said, and fought for patents against lawyers who assumed she was someone's assistant. She had armor for this. The Westminster room was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, a conference table that could seat 20, and 3 people waiting for her who would change everything. Richard Whitfield III stood at the head of the table, 64 years old, silver hair perfectly styled, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. His family had built their fortune in pharmaceuticals over 3 generations, and now they controlled one of the largest healthcare conglomerates in the world. Beside him stood his son, Richard IV, a Rick to his friends, 35 years old, Harvard MBA, the kind of man who wore his privilege like cologne. Too much, and everyone could smell it from across the room. And then there was Margaret Whitfield, Richard's wife, 58 years old, with the kind of polished appearance that came from decades of charity galas and country club committees. She smiled at Amara, but it was the smile you give someone you're not quite sure belongs in your house. "Dr. Johnson," Richard III said, extending his hand, "welcome. I trust the drive wasn't difficult in this weather." Amara shook his hand firmly. "Not at all, Mr. Whitfield. Thank you for hosting. Please call me Richard. We're about to be partners, after all." But there was something in his tone, a slight emphasis on the word partners, that made Amara's antenna go up immediately. Margaret gestured toward the conference table. "Please, have a seat. We've prepared some refreshments." Amara noticed that while there were name cards at the table, hers was positioned not at the head where major decisions are made, but halfway down the side. A subtle positioning that spoke volumes about how they saw her role in this partnership. Rick pulled out his phone and started scrolling, barely acknowledging her presence. "So," he said without looking up, "MedTech Solutions. That's the AI thing, right? Machine learning or whatever." Amara's expression didn't change, but inside, she felt that familiar flash of irritation. "We build diagnostic prediction systems that have reduced misdiagnosis rates by 34% and saved an estimated 12,000 lives in the past 3 years. Rick looked up from his phone for the first time. Right. Very impressive. Dad showed me the numbers." Although he paused, tilting his head like he was trying to solve a puzzle, "I have to ask, and please don't take this the wrong way, but how did you get into the tech space? I mean, what's your background?" The question hung in the air like smoke. It wasn't what he was asking, it was what he wasn't asking. "I have a PhD in biomedical engineering from Johns Hopkins, an MD from Harvard Medical School, and I worked as an emergency room physician for 5 years before founding MedTech," Amara replied evenly. Margaret chimed in with what she probably thought was a helpful comment. "How wonderful. I love that you took such an unconventional path. It's so ... refreshing to see someone from your background succeed in this field." From my background, the words landed exactly as Margaret intended them to. Richard III cleared his throat. What Margaret means is that innovation comes from diverse perspectives. That's exactly why we're excited about this acquisition. But Amara heard what he really meant. You're different, and we're buying you because different is trendy right now. As they settled around the conference table, Preston wheeled in a cart with coffee, pastries, and what looked like a full lunch spread. But he only served the Whitfields. When he passed by Amara's seat, he hesitated. "Would you like some coffee, miss?" he asked. "Not Dr. Johnson, not even ma'am, just miss." Before Amara could respond, Margaret jumped in. "Oh, she probably want tea, won't you, dear?" "Earl Grey." Amara looked directly at Margaret. "Actually, I'll take the coffee, black." A small moment, but telling. Margaret had made an assumption, and Amara had corrected it quietly but firmly. Rick leaned back in his chair, studying Amara like she was an interesting specimen. "So, Dr. Johnson, can I call you Amara? I've been looking at your financials, and I have to say they're pretty solid for a company your size." "For a company my size," Amara repeated. "Well, you know what I mean. Smaller operations, founder-led companies, they don't always have the same level of sophistication that we're used to working with." Richard III nodded along. "What Rick means is that we're impressed by how far you've come without traditional institutional backing. Very scrappy." Scrappy. Another word that sounded like a compliment but felt like a backhanded slap. "Mr. Whitfield," Amara said, leaning forward slightly, "MedTech Solutions generated $340 million in revenue last year. We hold 47 patents, have partnerships with Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, and Cleveland Clinic, and our technology is currently being implemented in hospitals across 4 continents. I'm not sure what you mean by traditional institutional backing, but we've been profitable since year 2. Rick's eyes widened slightly. "Wow, defensive much?" "I was giving you a compliment. I wasn't being defensive," Amara replied calmly. "I was correcting your assumption." The temperature in the room seemed to drop a few degrees. Margaret tried to smooth things over. "I think what the men are trying to say is that they admire your ... tenacity. It must have been so hard, building a company without the usual advantages." There it was again, without the usual advantages. Translation, without being born white and wealthy. Richard III pulled out a folder. "Well, let's get down to business. We've prepared an offer that we think you'll find very generous. $600 million all cash with a 3-year earn-out structure." He slid the papers across the table to Amara. "Of course, we'd expect you to stay on in an operational capacity. Under our management structure, naturally." Amara scanned the documents. The offer was substantial, but the terms ... the terms told a different story. "I see I'd be reporting to Rick as Chief Technology Officer," she said. Rick grinned. "That's right. I mean, you build the technology, but running a division within a major corporation is different from running your own little startup. You'll have guidance, structure, oversight, everything you need to really scale." Amara looked up from the papers. "Rick, how long have you worked in medical technology?" Well, I've been with a family business for 8 years. In medical technology specifically, Rick's confidence faltered slightly. I mean, I oversee multiple divisions. So, 0 years in medical technology, Amara said. It wasn't a question. The silence that followed was deafening. Margaret tried to rescue the moment. Amara, dear. I think you might be misunderstanding the dynamic here. Rick has an MBA from Harvard. He understands business operations in a way that ... Well, in a way that's different from technical expertise. Amara set the papers down carefully. Mrs. Whitfield, are you suggesting that my 15 years of running a successful medical technology company haven't taught me about business operations? No. Margaret laughed nervously. Of course not. I just mean that there are certain cultural aspects to running a division within an established family business that might require some adjustment. Cultural aspects, the phrase hung in the air like a neon sign. Rick leaned forward, trying to regain control of the conversation. Look, Amara, Dr. Johnson, she corrected. Right, Dr. Johnson, nobody's questioning your technical abilities, but let's be real here. You're asking us to pay you $600 million for a company that, let's face it, you might not have been able to build if you hadn't gotten lucky with some diversity initiatives and government grants. The room went dead silent. Richard III's face went pale. But Rick was on a roll now. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. There are a lot of programs now that help ... people like you get funding and opportunities that weren't available before, which is great, it's progress. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure we're making sound business decisions, not diversity hires. Amara sat perfectly still for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but crystal clear. People like me. Rick realized he had stepped in it, but instead of apologizing, he doubled down. You know what I mean, I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm just being honest about market realities. No, Amara said, standing up slowly. You're being honest about your assumptions. And your assumptions tell me everything I need to know about what this partnership would actually look like. She gathered her papers and put them in her briefcase. Dr. Johnson, Richard III said urgently, please don't let Rick's enthusiasm ... overshadow what we're trying to accomplish here. Amara looked directly at him. Mr. Whitfield, your son just suggested that I built a $340 million company because of diversity initiatives and government handouts. Your wife has spent the last hour telling me how surprised she is that someone like me could succeed in this field, and you sat there nodding along like this is all perfectly normal. She snapped her briefcase shut. The problem isn't Rick's enthusiasm. The problem is that none of you see me as an equal. You see me as a charity case you're doing a favor for. Margaret stood up, looking flustered. That's not. We don't think. Amara, you're being very sensitive. Dr. Johnson, Amara corrected one final time, and I'm not being sensitive. I'm being clear. There's no deal here. Richard III stepped forward, his voice taking on an edge that had probably intimidated a lot of people over the years. Dr. Johnson, I think you're making a mistake. This is a very generous offer. You might not get another opportunity like this. Amara turned back to him, and for the first time since she'd entered the room, she smiled. Not a polite smile, not a diplomatic smile, but a smile that said she knew something they didn't. Mr. Whitfield, let me share something with you. Last month, I had lunch with the CEO of Genecorp. 2 weeks ago, I played tennis with the founder of Biolab Industries. Yesterday, I had a video call with the board of directors at European Medical Consortium. All of them want to partner with MedTech Solutions. All of them, she let that sink in for a moment. The difference is, they want to partner with me because they respect what I've built. They see me as a leader, not as a diversity checkbox. They understand that my technology isn't successful because of government grants or lucky breaks, it's successful because it's revolutionary. Rick's face had gone from smug to pale. Wait, you're talking to our competitors. I'm talking to people who understand value when they see it, Amara replied. People who don't assume that a black woman CEO must have gotten lucky or had helped to build something extraordinary. Margaret made one last attempt. Amara, Dr. Johnson, surely we can work through this misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, Amara said. You've shown me exactly who you are. and I've decided that my company's legacy is worth more than your money." She walked toward the door, her heels clicking authoritatively on the marble floor. Just before she reached it, she turned back. "One more thing. When your competitors are using my technology to save lives while you're still trying to figure out why you lost this deal, remember this moment. Remember the day you let your prejudices cost you $600 million, and with that, she was gone. The elevator ride down felt different from the ride up, lighter somehow. Amara pulled out her phone and sent a text to her CFO, "Deals off. Call the lawyers, we're going with Genecorp." The response came back immediately. "Are you sure that's a lot of money to walk away from?" Amara typed back, "Some things are worth more than money. Our dignity is one of them." By the time she reached the lobby, she had 3 missed calls and 7 text messages. Word was already spreading through the medical technology community that something had gone wrong with the Whitfield deal. But Amara wasn't worried. She walked out of One Manhattan Plaza into the swirling snow, climbed into her waiting car, and started making calls. Within 48 hours, the story had leaked to the business press. Not from Amara, she never said a word publicly about what happened in that room. But someone on the Whitfield side, probably trying to do damage control, had talked to a reporter about the difficult negotiations with the medtech CEO. The reporter did his homework. He found out about Rick's comments, about Margaret's assumptions, about the way they had positioned Amara at the conference table. He wrote a story that made the Whitfields look exactly as small and prejudiced as they actually were. The internet did the rest. #MedTechCEO started trending. Videos surfaced of Amara's speeches at medical conferences, interviews where she discussed the challenges of being a black woman in tech, clips of her explaining how her technology worked to save lives. The contrast was stark. Here was a brilliant woman who had revolutionized medical diagnostics, and there was a billionaire family who couldn't see past their own biases long enough to recognize her genius. 3 weeks later, Amara announced a partnership with Genecorp, $800 million, majority control retained, and a seat on Genecorp's board of directors. As an equal partner, not a diversity hire. The Whitfield Group's stock price dropped 12% the day the news broke. Rick Whitfield was quietly reassigned to strategic planning, corporate speak for removed from important decisions, and Amara. She kept building, kept innovating, kept proving that respect isn't something you ask for, it's something you command by being undeniably excellent at what you do. 6 months later, at a medical technology conference in San Francisco, a young black woman approached Amara after her keynote speech. "Dr. Johnson," she said, "I'm a first-year medical student, and I wanted to thank you for walking away from that deal. I've been following your story, and it taught me something I needed to learn." "What's that?" Amara asked. "That I don't have to accept less than I'm worth just to get a seat at someone else's table. I can build my own table." Amara smiled. "That's exactly right. And when you build your own table, you get to decide who sits at it." The story of Dr. Amara Johnson and the $600 million deal she walked away from became more than just business news. It became a blueprint for how to maintain your dignity in rooms that weren't built for you, how to recognize when respect is absent, and how to have enough confidence in your own value to say no to money that comes with conditions you can't accept. Because at the end of the day, the most expensive thing you can do is compromise who you are for people who will never see your true worth anyway. Your dignity isn't for sale. Your brilliance doesn't need validation from people who can't recognize it. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away, not because you're giving up, but because you know you deserve better. And when you do, the world watches, learns, and changes just a little bit because of your courage.